Hamilton just finding 0.6 of a second on Raikkonen there. The gap down to 1.6 and up to 4.2 on Massa. What is that all about? Is that just a light sprinkling of rain somewhere? Raikkonen laps the Williams then of Nakajima. And look at that, Hamilton visibly closer.
I'll tell you what, from what we've seen as well, when there is a little bit of rain around, particularly on these dry tyres, the McLaren is the better car in that condition. So if it does start to rain, Hamilton I think will fancy it. Sticking the tail out there, he's really pushing hard. And you can see over the course of the last 3 sectors and the lap that he's closing the gap now. Back marker in the way is the Williams of Kazuki Nakajima. Oh, sorry, Nico Rosberg. No, it was Nakajima. Had it right the first time. He's scythed through without too much loss to Lewis Hamilton. And we've got 7 laps to go here. The nerves will be jangling in both the Ferrari and the McLaren garages. And we're looking for the first signs of the spectators in the stands just reaching for the umbrellas, putting the hoods on.
Some drops of rain in turn 1 and turn 14. Keep an eye.
Yeah, that's Fernando Alonso to his engineers there, and also some drops of rain here in the pit lane as well, James. I'm just looking over to the Red Bull timing stand because Christian Horner has sent his executive driver out on a moped to the end of the circuit on a mobile phone just to tell him when the rain is coming in. He hasn't had a call on his mobile yet, but he will be very soon for him to tell DC and Webber out there. But just quickly on Lewis Hamilton, at what point, James, do they tell Lewis to protect the engine for Monza?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, good point, but I'm not sure they're thinking about that at the moment. I mean, obviously in the rain that the engine is less stressed anyway, but he's got to get, if he's got a chance of winning the race, considering that he will feel he threw it away with that spin at the end of the first lap, I'm sure it'll be difficult to tell Hamilton to do anything other than go for it. Well, even though there is a championship at stake. Down to 1.9 seconds now, the gap, although Raikkonen managed to steady the ship a little bit on that last lap. Already on this lap, Hamilton is 0.3 of a second quicker than him in sector 1 alone.
Well, this is the closest fight on the track at the moment. Webber 11th, Glock 10th, less than a second apart. Probably the best scrap is Bourdais, Vettel, Heidfeld and Kubica, 2 Toro Rossos, 2 BMWs, line astern really in 5, 6, 7 and 8. Massa's 4.7 behind Hamilton now, Hamilton 1.9 behind Raikkonen. And clearly each lap will be a new adventure if it's starting to spit with rain.
Well, you can see on some of the camera lenses, including this one, there's some spots of rain. We heard the engineer from Renault saying the rain would be light. But, well, very few predictions this weekend have gone right. You see quite a bit of rain there. Still a few damp patches from earlier on today when the Lassour's hairpin was damp at the start of the Grand Prix, as was the bus stop chicane too. And it was 6 laps to go, a long lap here though. So still over 10 minutes of racing. Plenty of time for the weather to throw a curveball.
Webber then obviously had that spin out with Kovalainen, and Kovalainen had a drive through. But such is the pace of the McLaren, Kovalainen's recovered and is 17 seconds ahead of Webber now, despite going through the pit lane 3 times so far this afternoon, has Heikki Kovalainen, and he's got 4.3 second gap to catch Kubica if he wants to take a point home for McLaren.
On board with Webber, plenty of dampness on the lens there. This is the 11th place. Mark Webber, he was solidly in the points before he was nerfed out by Heikki Kovalainen early on. Very harsh that was. The
difficulty here is always knowing just when those white lines go from giving you extra grip and a bit of extra girth to the corner to minimise the angle, and all of a sudden being as slippery as anything, and you use them relentlessly, and all of a sudden they become poisonous to you.
Well, Webber has to get out of the way of the leaders. Meanwhile, Hamilton has just set the fastest first sector he has done for the entire Grand Prix. The gap is coming down now as in the slightly uncertain conditions, Hamilton is really on it. And it may well be a little beginning to be a bit damp, but that, as I say, is his fastest first sector of the entire Grand Prix.
Well, he's got to put pressure on Raikkonen. What he can't afford to do is make a big error Lewis here, but he won't be thinking about that. It's a brave drive by Raikkonen and Hamilton. They're giving it plenty. Supreme skill and determination going on here. But right now, Hamilton has the upper hand. Look at that. He can begin to judge his braking points now by the gearbox casing of that Ferrari. And Hamilton applying the pressure. The gap down to 0.9 of a second.
He took 0.6 of a second out of him on that last lap alone. You could see the activity on the Ferrari timing wall. Luca Badoer, the test driver, was in the foreground biting his nails. Stefano Domenicali, the team principal, in the middle, very agitated and very focused on the final 4 laps of this Grand Prix. Spa-Francorchamps, without doubt, the most magnificent track on the calendar. Often unpredictable, particularly when the weather intervenes. And what is the outcome of this one going to be? The gap, less than a second last time through. Hamilton has been matched on the first sector this time by Raikkonen. Catching is one thing in Formula One, passing very much another. Hamilton needs a few spots of rain, I think, to help him here.
Yeah, Raikkonen, of course, now in the clear air. It's Hamilton in the turbulent air, the hard-worked air coming off the back of that Ferrari, and he's just in that zone now, unfortunately. So he might start having to just peg him on section times.
Well, he's in this position because he made a mistake at the end of the first lap and handed the lead to Raikkonen, who is not in any mood to hand it back to him. Massa still third, 6 seconds behind. He's settled, I think, for a podium place today and 6 World Championship points. His championship fight will have to go on to Monza in a week's time. Alonso 4th, Bourdais 5th. His best drive in Formula One confirmed. 6th, Vettel. A big haul of points today for Toro Rosso. That will take them past Honda in the Constructors' World Championship. So a big, big day for them. 7th, Heidfeld. 8th, Kubica. That's the points positions. A little lock up there for the slide for Hamilton.
It's been a poor lap already. Lost 4/10 in the middle part of it. So the gap will be well over a second now. It's 2 seconds. So that was a very poor lap from Lewis. And he's obviously found the limit and gone slightly beyond it. He maintains a 6-second advantage to Massa, though, thankfully for him. And then Alonso 4th, Bourdais still holding off Vettel, Heidfeld and Kubica for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. And Kovalainen can't get on terms with them at the moment.
That's the story of Hamilton's race. He's lost a place since the start. He's made his two stops. And, well, that last lap, not particularly sharp for Lewis Hamilton, losing him ground. There's David Lloyd on the right, the ball man. The rain's beginning to fall a bit more hard now down in the pit lane. David Lloyd, one of the British engineers, still at the heart of Ferrari. And you can see now it's beginning to affect the handling. They've eased up.
It's too late to come in for a tyre change unless it really starts coming down torrentially. And Hamilton beginning to move back in, is he? Has that gap gone down a bit? Oh, so difficult to drive in these conditions. So you have to commit to the corner. You've got to believe it'll stick. You just don't know till you get there.
This is one of those circumstances where it's so easy to go from hero to zero. Some people will fancy their chances if it continues to rain hard. I think Sebastian Vettel will be one of them. He's only a second behind his teammate Sebastian Bourdais. Watch out for that in the battle for 5th and 6th places. But no question at all, Hamilton was quicker there through that corner than Raikkonen. And you can see he's right up on his gearbox now. As I said before, the trend has been for the McLaren to be the quicker car on dry tyres on a wettening track, and now Hamilton is right up behind Raikkonen and goes for it down the outside of the bus stop. Raikkonen's not giving anything away. They almost touch, they do touch. Hamilton will have to give the corner back. They're side by side. He'll have to have a go at him at La Source. Okay, now Raikkonen's back in front and Hamilton's going to attack him. He goes down the inside. Raikkonen tried to play it cool, but it went wrong for him. Hamilton's through. They touch again. Amazing action here at Spa-Francorchamps, but Lewis Hamilton is back in the lead with 2 laps to go.
He was determined to take that, wasn't he? Raikkonen being extremely defensive. I think it was all fair enough. But Hamilton taking all of that, keeping his cool, letting Raikkonen go back to be the first one over the finish line so that he yielded the position. Now he's got to get it slowed down into Leclerc. But Raikkonen will have to be bouncing across the grass. Now he's kept it together. It's going to be treacherous to the finish of the Grand Prix. Raikkonen definitely not as comfortable in these conditions as Hamilton, but it needs one snatched break to get this all horribly wrong. Raikkonen just tippy-toeing around the outside of Rivage as well. Here we are for a replay. Lewis went for the big dive down the outside and just tried to muscle it out. Raikkonen having nothing of it. Hamilton sensibly abandoning that one and just immediately rejoining for this one here. So,
Heidfeld has pitted for BMW. He's taking a chance here. He's going on to some wet tyres. It looks like Raikkonen's run wide there. Hamilton's having problems as well, though. Raikkonen's got a lot of momentum there. Meanwhile, Massa has lost ground in these conditions. Whoa, Hamilton's off. Raikkonen gets back past him again. There's a Williams in the mix too. Hamilton's on the grass.
So Raikkonen back in.
And Hamilton Raikkonen spins.
They'll have to stop for intermediates. It's the only thing they can do now. It's worth the stop. Well, what will Massa do? Massa's coming up behind. What do you do? It's a complete gamble. If you can keep it out of the wall at this point, can they tippy-toe for the last 8 miles?
Absolutely. Heidfeld has come in for tyres and so has Glock. They've got nothing to lose. Heidfeld was 9th, Glock was 11th. They were 60 seconds behind the race leader, but, well, in these conditions, anything could happen as Hamilton again struggles to keep it on the road. Terrible decision to make.
Oh, Raikkonen's going to hit the wall from there.
He's going to hit the wall. He has hit the wall. That's Raikkonen, just like at Silverstone. Remember there, he was spinning like a top, and he's in the wall and out of this Grand Prix, having led it for most of the race. And Hamilton can take it easy now.
Surely Hamilton will pit for intermediates. No, he doesn't, and nor does Massa.
That's the most important thing from Hamilton's point of view. Massa doesn't pit either.
No, sorry, 1 lap to go. So
still 1 more to go. 4.3 miles. And the McLaren team are getting well and truly into this. Is anybody having a go here? Vettel looks like he's quite quick. He's 6th at the moment. Like he's lining up his teammate Bourdais. They're 12 seconds behind Alonso. Now, these painted white lines are lethal. Hamilton's having such problem just keeping the car going. This is the most dramatic end to a Grand Prix for years.
So gently, just squeeze it on. And where's Massa? He'll be even struggling more, I think, in the background. But as those pressures and temperature, where Massa's just creeping around at the top, a little bit dry at the top there. Sorry to cut across you, James.
No problem. Well, they are 36 seconds slower per lap than they were when it was dry. That's how much it's affected things. They're on dry tyres on a wet track. And Alonso has lost a huge amount of time to Bourdais and Vettel. Behind Lewis Hamilton on the racetrack, Alonso in the Renault's in trouble. Hamilton's in a good position here. He knows he just needs to manage the gap. Massa doesn't look like any kind of threat to him. The most important thing, though, is to keep it off these painted white lines.
He can at least just squeeze the throttle. He'll know from the team that he's got a big advantage now. And he's just literally coasting, freewheeling through Pouhon there. And he can just bring it home from there.
It must be one of the slowest and least glorious final laps you'll ever see to win a Grand Prix. But he's halfway round the lap now, and it's still not easy for him.
It'll just get slipperier and slipperier because the tyre temperatures are going away and the pressures go away.
Bourdais, third now. What's happened to Alonso? He pitted for tyres, so he's dropped down, and Bourdais on for a podium here.
Yeah, I thought there was 2 laps to go because there was 1 lap to go. So what the call is, do you think you can get around? Yellow flags waving. That'll be for Raikkonen's Ferrari in the wall. And Hamilton now, as soon as the downforce builds up a bit at these, he's probably doing 120, 130 miles an hour. It's then it'll start to stick as long as you haven't got too much throttle on.
And that's the most satisfying sight he could possibly imagine, seeing the Ferrari in the wall. The Ferrari's dominated him. He makes a bit of a mess in the final corner. There's a Red Bull there. Having a look at him, it's David Coulthard. But Lewis Hamilton comes through, and in the most extraordinary circumstances imaginable, he wins the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps to add a crucial title to his belt. He's won at Monaco, he's won at Silverstone, and he's won at Spa this year.